All right, we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Another presidential primary debate is in the books where 7 candidates fought over who might make a good vice president to Donald Trump. A recent ABC Washington Post poll shows Donald Trump with a strong 9-point lead over President Biden if the general election were held today. What would happen? What would seriously happen if Trump wins in November of 2024? How would the media react? How would the government react? Would Trump be barred from claiming office? We're going to get deep into speculation territory. And as I said to Jim when I was pitching this episode, the best type of speculation is wild speculation. We're going to be talking about this and more in episode 417 of the In the Tank podcast. That's right. Thank you. I could hear you all applauding in your living rooms listening to me. I am Donald Kendal, as always, your host of the In the Tank podcast, and I've got a full boat today. Yes, I know, I got it. Keep it down. I've got Jim Likely, VP of the Heartland Institute. How are you doing today, good sir?
I'm doing good, except for I forgot to hit the "don't loop the applause" sound effect in there. Yeah, I've been sick all week, as you guys know. It's my first time in the office actually all week, and despite all of that, I think I'm having a pretty good hair day. And I think with just another inch and a half, it'll almost be as tall as Vivek Ramaswamy's hair was at last night's debate. So that's my goal.
Yes, that's our main takeaway from the debate that happened last night was Vivek Ramaswamy's hair. But also joining us, we have Justin Haskins, director of the Socialism Research Center here at the Heartland Institute, showing up 15 seconds after we hit go live. How's it going, Justin?
None of those people are me showing up on the screen. I'm doing pretty well. I feel well, actually, no, I'm not. I'm actually not doing well. I'm doing really terrible. I'm sick yet again. I'm learning that having a child is the equivalent to inviting a Wuhan wet market into your home, which is not good. Just full of disease. It's terrible. Sick all the time. Jim is triggering me by talking about how great his hair is. It's just not appropriate at all, Jim. I'm going to be talking to Wanda later. Finally,
this is not an inviting broadcast.
This is really hostile. Right, Donnie's calling me out, telling the audience that I'm showing up 15 seconds before. I mean,
full transparency. That's what I'm all about.
Outrageous.
Also joining us, lit better than ever, Chris Talgo, who is the editorial director here at the Heartland Institute. How are you doing today, good sir?
Donnie, I'm still digesting what occurred on screen last night, and I think we're going to have a very interesting conversation about the debate. So
yeah, well, let's
just get to it.
Dude, we have a lot to talk about. It's going to be a long show, everyone, so buckle up. Also joining us, though, we do have a special guest, Samantha Fillmore, State Government Relations Manager here at the Heartland Institute. How are you doing today, Samantha?
I'm well. I'm excited to see you guys, and I'm really excited to hear my favorite hotheads, especially Jim and Chris, just rattle off some reactions to what happened last night. So I'm very excited.
I think we're in for quite a debate on this podcast because we have a lot to talk about. I mentioned we were going to talk about the debates. We're going to talk about the prospect of Trump actually winning and the reaction that would ensue from that victory if it happens. I do have a Davos watch segment for the end as well, so we have a lot to get into. But before we do, I had to put out that message to those audio-only listeners that are catching the show probably on a Friday or later that you can join our show live Thursdays at noon Central Time, where we are streaming on Facebook and YouTube and Rumble and Twitter. And you can join the conversation, throw your comments and questions in the chat. Maybe we'll show your comments on the screen. Maybe we'll address your questions on the fly. You could also support the show by doing the Super Chat. We have that Super Chat functionality enabled, so you can support the show that way and guarantee that your comment or question is read on the air. Or you could help us out the old-fashioned way that doesn't cost you a penny. Only it costs you a couple seconds hitting that like button, sharing this content, subscribing if you haven't already, or just leaving a comment on the video. All helps break through those big tech algorithms that prevent content like this from being shown to more people. So yes, there was a debate. 7 people on stage. Like I said, Trump wasn't there. So what are we even doing? Why are we even paying attention to this? That's what it seems like to me. But who actually watched the debate? Justin, did you end up watching any of it?
I watched some of it after I got off the phone with you this morning.
Okay.
I got a good solid 20 minutes in, but I'll be honest with you, I feel like I got the gist of it.
Great.
First 20
Chris
minutes.
watched it wire to wire, 100%.
Yeah.
I don't even have to ask him. Yeah, okay. Jim, how much did you watch?
Well, I watched almost all of it this morning. I know I had actually fallen asleep in my favorite chair last night while watching TV, and not the debate. And then I got up and noticed that my phone had 63 texts on it in a thread among you, Justin, and a few other Heartlanders to talk about the debate. And so I kind of got the flavor of it. But I got to say, when I watched it this morning, I didn't think the debate was nearly as bad as you guys were describing, and it wasn't as bad as some of the the other thing I did is I went to Twitter and read some of the people that I follow on Twitter and what they thought of the debate, and they thought it was a huge disaster and the worst thing ever. Honestly, maybe it's because I had a good night's sleep. But because if you nap before you even go to bed, that's a really great night's sleep. Right. So I actually didn't think it was nearly as bad as the first one, which I thought was a complete S show. I almost swore again on this thing before we even get to the 4-minute mark. But I thought the first debate.
You're not even upset yet. You're almost dropping bombs here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's just like me. So anyway, we can get into it, but I didn't think it was nearly as bad. It wasn't awesome, but it wasn't nearly as bad. And I actually thought most of the candidates did a pretty good job.
Samantha, what did you watch the debate?
I did not. Like the other two of you on this episode with babies, I was promptly going to sleep as best as I could, and actually just slightly triggered by Jim talking about his nap before his bedtime.
Jim's triggering everybody. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Classic boomer.
But no, I watched about 30 minutes of it this morning, and I listened to the highlights. So I feel prepared. I feel like I got the general gist, and maybe watching it after the fact, I was able to scrub out some of the reality show bickering that it appears that most of the debate was.
All right. Well, I think the person that has the strongest opinion about the debate is going to be Chris. So I'll let you lead off on this discussion about debate number 2. What do you have to say?
Yeah, well, I think that the moderators did a terrible job. And I think that most of the questions were framed from a perspective of big government is good. And unless you are pro big government, then you are actually part of the problem. Let me give you just one of the examples. When it came to their very, very brief discussion on childcare, the question was framed, and I don't remember exactly. I think it was Dana Perino who asked this question, was framed as childcare is getting cut, and that's a huge problem, and that's making childcare more unaffordable. So are you going to cut it or add to the spending? Instead of saying, why is childcare going up? It's going up because of the spending and the inflation, and all of the terrible Biden, policies. And I think that the moderator for Univision, almost every single question she asked was an attack-oriented gotcha question meant to put the candidates on the defensive. So it just seemed to me like the framing of almost all the questions was the Republican stance or the Republican agenda is responsible for a problem. So how would you do that differently? And it was nonstop all night long. And once again, I think they did a pretty poor job of containing the discussion. And one of the other things that really I thought was annoying was they would ask a question, they would let maybe 1, 2, or 3 candidates answer that question, and then they would immediately move on to another question. And many of the candidates said, wait a second, we really want to chime in on this question. So it was very superficial. They didn't get into any depth on any of the issues. They were just jumping from issue to issue. I thought this was going to be much more about the economy, Fox Business, Stuart Varney. This guy knows the economy inside and out. He literally was asking questions that were anti-free market and actually in a pro big government fashion. It blew my mind.
Interesting. Yeah, I've heard a lot of. I watched some post-debate coverage, and people were saying, "Oh yeah, the first half was really bad. The second half was much better, or something." And I only watched the second half. Samantha mentioned, with the idea of having kids, those kids didn't go down until well after the debate started. So I only caught the second half, and I thought, like, oh, this isn't terrible. I mean, there was a lot of policy discussed, maybe not a whole lot of economy stuff, but they talked about education, school choice, healthcare. I even heard a reference to certificate of need. Justin, can you believe that? At one point, there was a question about automation and AI and job losses. So I thought that there was actually a lot covered, but maybe I wasn't.
But Tony, one of the things
half.
that the candidates were doing, and I was glad that they did this, is they were ignoring some of the questions and actually answering. Sure. Yeah, because they were asked questions such as, why are Americans smuggling drugs across the border instead of why is the U.S. government allowing the Mexican cartels to basically run roughshod over the border? Just the way that they were framed, I think, really set the tone, and the tone was that it wasn't that that the current administration is causing these problems. It's that this goes back to Trump, and a lot of it was anti-Trump, and I just thought that it was it was very awful, very, very terrible.
Yeah, my two favorite moments, real quick, and I'll let you jump in, Justin. My two favorite moments was Nikki Haley literally made a Billy Madison reference, where she said after Vivek talked, she said, "I feel dumber every time I hear you speak," or something like that. It was a little rough, I'll say. And then my award to the most prepared statement of the entire debate goes to Chris Christie, where he had that whole thing where he called Donald Trump Donald Duck or whatever. And then he had that stupid smile on his face after he said it. So
these guys got to stop trying to get one-liners and jokes in. They are terrible.
And at least if you do, don't laugh at your own joke. Okay, you look pathetic when you do that.
So bad. Yeah, just no. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say Donnie had a real missed opportunity not changing his name to Donald Duck.
Yeah,
that's true. That would have been good. Although I don't know how much of this audience actually watched the debate, so I don't know if anybody would have gotten that. But I just to kind of reiterate one of the things that Chris said. So there was one point in the debate, and again, I only watched like the first 20 minutes of it or whatever, where the hostess from Univision, Ilya Calderon, asked Chris Christie about his immigration policies. Do you remember this, Chris? Yeah. And she went out of her way to reference a quote from 2015 where Chris Christie allegedly referred to tracking immigrants the way that FedEx tracks packages. Yep. Like she went out of her way to like cite that quote. Yeah. And I'm just like, I mean, I don't care because I hate Chris Christie, so whatever. But at the same time, it's like, this is a Republican debate. Like the idea that some Republican primary voter cares about Chris Christie at all, but then cares about a Chris Christie quote from 8 years ago.
Right.
And then taking that quote and kind of manipulate, because the quote isn't as bad as that makes it sound at all. Right. And the idea that to make it as, to twist it into something really, I mean, it just,
you literally want to put immigrants in cardboard boxes. That's what you're saying, right?
They were, but they were doing that from the get-go. The opening question was about the UAW strike. So they put Tim Scott right on the spot and said, "You said that you agree with Ronald Reagan when he fired the air control employees, but that was very different from that was first of all a public sector union, and they were refusing to go to do their jobs. The UAW strike has nothing to do with that."
Her question was, would you fire thousands of striking auto workers? And Tim Scott was like, "What?"
Yeah, Tim Scott was like, "But he
can't fire private sector workers." That's
exactly.
That was the first question. It was absurd,
right? So that just got the entire thing off to a bad start, and I think it just got worse from there. I think Justin, whenever they talked about immigration, they never talked about securing the border. They talked about DACA. They talked about all these other things, and the Republican candidates were trying to pivot to the issues that mattered. But it seems like every time they pivoted, and Ron DeSantis, I thought, did a great job of covered this on many things. The moderators actually got like angry and were like, no, we want you to address our question. And a lot of times they were saying these questions don't matter to the American people. The American people want to hear us debate the things that matter to them.
Maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe Jim or Chris, you can remind me.
You're wrong.
But when they brought about when they mentioned the immigration thing, I don't think they ever mentioned that we just had a month where we had 300,000 people.
Right.
That's just the people that they had interactions with. That doesn't include all the other 300,000 people illegally cross the border that we know of. And they didn't even mention that when they brought up illegal immigration. It's like,
They immediately went
to
a Ronald Reagan quote talking about amnesty in 1984, and it was it was predicated as Ronald Reagan, and we're here at the Ronald Reagan Library.
Crazy.
He was for amnesty, so therefore you should be for amnesty. And when they were saying, "Oh, we actually don't believe in amnesty," and Vivek Ramaswamy had a great response to that, you could tell that they were actually getting heated and irritated because they were not walking the liberal line. Which to me was just so frustrating because I had high hopes for Dana Perino and Stuart Varney, and I think that they just did a horrendous job.
Also, that quote from Ronald Reagan was 40 years ago.
Right.
And he had a
People on this
deal.
podcast weren't alive when that quote was made.
Right. And the deal Reagan made was that I'll give you amnesty, but I want, a comprehensive immigration reform, which may have even included ending birthright citizenship. And he didn't get that. So actually the lesson from Ronald Reagan giving amnesty 40 years ago is you don't give amnesty. And as they pointed out, no Republican or Democrat president has done so since. And that's because it's a raw deal. Look, the immigration thing was actually pretty interesting because it got, as you mentioned, Justin, I think the number is 7 million illegals have come across that we know of. Come across the border in just the 2.5 years, maybe not even 3 years of the Biden administration, 7 million. And the Univision reporter, and why is Univision there anyway? By the way, if this is Fox Business, there's no reason because every question was framed from the left, whether it was on immigration or anything else. But she mentioned that we have 11 million illegal immigrants in this country. We've been using that 11 million illegals in this country number now for 30 years? And we just had 7 million this year. I mean, it would be interesting. It would be really great. In fact, the only time we've ever had an actual the immigration discussion, Vivek actually went there and said, we need to end birthright citizenship. If you come over to this country illegally and have a baby, that baby should not be a citizen. It's a misreading of the Constitution. And, no other country does this. I mean, my wife was born in England. She's not a citizen of the United Kingdom. She's an American. She was born to American expats over there, and she was not given citizenship in the UK just because she was born there. It would be. I'm waiting for someone to come off with this really hardline immigration policy, and this would be stronger than Remain in Mexico and all these other things that Trump did. But frankly, we're not that draconian, but did help stem the tide of just a wave of people coming over that we can't handle because they're not coming over in any orderly fashion. It's that if you come into this country illegally, you forfeit ever becoming a citizen of this country. If that was a solid and announced policy in this country, it would stop immediately, or it would certainly stem a lot of it because people are coming over here to stay here permanently. And maybe you would even extend it saying, if you come into this country illegally, breaking the law as your first act in this country, you also don't even get a green card. You have to do it legally or you have no place in this society. That would be a policy that I think actually Vivek was almost getting close to articulating. But, they said at the beginning, we have a lot of questions. We have a lot of topics to cover. I stopped counting the questions at 33. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you gave people actual chances to answer, if you had 15 questions that you could get through in 2 hours with only 7 people, 7 people on the stage, you could have an actual debate and a real discussion. Instead, it's all this lightning round crap that all the moderators always do that doesn't inform anybody of anything. You basically have to read between the lines to understand what any of the policy positions any of these people have.
Jim's new assessment on the debate is that it was in fact worse than the last one. It's getting heated up while talking about it.
I usually talk myself into the worst scenario if I keep going.
So my biggest takeaway though from only watching the first 20 minutes, and I don't think I need to watch any more of it. I might anyway because I'm a masochist, but my biggest takeaway was, and this is a good segue for you, Donnie. So I'm setting you up. All
Serve it up for me.
I'm serving it up. The most important takeaway was watching this debate was like watching a AAA baseball game or a preseason football game, NFL game or something, in that it feels like, yes, you're watching something. It is the sport. It sort of resembles what we imagine, something that we should care about. But ultimately, it's meaningless. Like, none of this actually matters. Sure. And the reason none of it actually matters is because the one person who's winning all the polls for the Republicans, that we all need to, who was mentioned, by the way, several times in the debate by the various candidates saying he's not here and he's a coward and he should be here and he should face his record and all that. Donald Trump was not there, and therefore this was basically AAA baseball. It doesn't really matter. And I think ultimately that's all these debates are. If he doesn't show up, it delegitimizes all of these things. They just don't even really matter at all.
Yeah, it would be a different story if he was only like 5 points ahead or like tied with somebody. But because he is so far ahead, yeah, I absolutely agree with you.
So my advice to the candidates would be, since I know they watch the show.
They do.
My advice, Doug Burgum in particular, I know, is always watching the show. So my advice to them is this. Next time, ignore every single question. Don't answer any question that's asked to you. Just immediately start attacking Donald Trump. All the candidates should spend every minute of their time attacking Donald Trump. That's all they should do. And the reason why is because if Donald Trump has to actually watch 3 hours of people just nonstop attacking him, he must show up, because he cannot stand the idea of watching these people attack him constantly without being able to fight them back. He can't stand it. I know he can't. So that's what we need. America needs all the candidates, Doug Burgum included, all of them, to come out and ruthlessly attack Donald Trump for 3 hours. That way we can have Donald Trump.
Does anyone deny that like Trump avoiding the debates is a good strategy? Because I think it very clearly is. Yeah. I mean, like if he was on the debate stage, it would be 7-on-1. There's no doubt about it, So I think it's totally makes sense for him not to be there.
I have very mixed feelings about it. I understand that like practically his absence makes a lot of sense for his overall success in the polls and his likability among his supporters, which is great. Although sometimes I have this feeling that like participation almost should be necessary. Like any time throughout our lives, through the general, like moving through the like constraints of society, if you ever wanted to participate in something in high school or in college or for work, like you would have to show up for the general participation events in order to be considered as, as a qualifier for a larger position or a larger office. So I kind of feel like it's a little bit of bending the rules. And I know that that's what Trump loves to do, but there's a little bit of like the traditionalist purist in me that like doesn't like that he just like exempts himself.
We're talking about practice, not a game. Not a game. Not a game. We're talking about practice, right, Chris? Come on, that was a reference for you.
I know.
So yeah, I do. I think it's Trump's to win the primary, and I want to basically explore the idea for the remaining part of the podcast of just like what happens if he does win. But before we do that, there is another kind of section that I want to get to. And that is the idea that this, In the Tank is a Heartland Institute show. We talk on the show consistently about Heartland Institute reports. We talk about Heartland op-eds. We talk about events that are being put on by Heartland. We talk about polls and studies that we release. But we rarely talk about a huge component of the Heartland Institute, and that is government relations efforts. We've talked about it in certain capacities, especially in regards to our ESG efforts or in relation to a specific project. But we have an entire GR department that is dedicated solely to educating lawmakers on a massive range of state and some federal public policy solutions to social and economic problems. And all sorts of different GR produced material comes across my desk, a whole lot of policy work that relates to energy and healthcare, education in the form of tip sheets or research and commentary policy documents. And most recently, I saw an article written by Samantha Fillmore that was published on the Center Square about Colorado's Taxpayer Bill of Rights and an attempt to weaken it in that state. So, Samantha, can you tell us about the Taxpayer Bill of Rights and what's going on here?
Absolutely. Oh, such a nice tip, by the way. Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem.
So since 1992, Colorado has had one of the best programs for taxpayers in the country, shortened to TABOR. That is our Taxpayers Bill of Rights, as you said. And essentially what it does is it limits the amount of revenue that the state government can retain and spend. It specifies that any tax increases must be approved by the state voters via ballot referendum. TABOR also ensures that the taxes collected by the state government that exceed the revenue cap end up being reimbursed to Coloradoans the next year, and it happens annually. So basically, as an Illinois resident, I am so jealous that a system like this even exists and that people get to enjoy it. But ultimately, through what we do at Heartland as a proponent of advocating for taxpayers across the nation, this is a great system. So what is happening in Colorado is that Democrats and their very libertarian governor is advocating for a Proposition HH. This is a voter referendum that Coloradoans will be faced with this November that appears to provide property tax relief, but really ultimately ends up undercutting TABOR. Before I continue, I must disclose that the Heartland Institute and its affiliates and employees do not specifically endorse voting in any direction for ballot initiatives, but this is just very interesting, and so I'm going about it through my capacity at the Heartland Institute for informational purposes, because as a budget and tax nerd, this is so interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are working on you GR folks over there. You guys are essentially working in every state across the country, right? Except for Wyoming. You know what you did, Wyoming, right?
We still love Wyoming. We love all equal opportunity state worker.
Okay, all right. You're off the hook, Wyoming.
Yes, we do. We work in all 50 states, and we try to advocate for any issues that generally Heartland comes across. ESG is a big one recently. We do healthcare, whether it's certificate of need, right to try. We have budget and tax, which is really my area of expertise. We also have actively engaged on governors, not gods issues, where we really try to reel in the emergency powers granted to governors during a state of emergency, which we all saw get carried away during COVID. As well as educational issues and pushing for school choice. So we definitely have a full plate, but that's what we do in GR.
Yeah, it's an enormously important role that Heartland takes, and I'm sure that there are people that are listening to this podcast that are particularly interested in our efforts when it comes to government relations. Is there a place that they can go to kind of stay up to date on the progress that you guys are making, or anything like that?
Yes. So all of our work is accessible from the Heartland Institute website. And there is a Heartland Institute GR email that's accessible. We are in the process of launching another organization separate from the Heartland Institute, Heartland Impact, that is not yet officially launched, but allows us more of a grassroots capacity, and that website will be coming soon, along with we have a GR and Heartland Impact social media, which I will have Andy link to all of the content later.
Fantastic. All right. Well, let's get to our main topic. Enough beating around the bush here. I want to get deep into the speculation territory, like I said, because that's the best type of speculation, is wild speculation. So what if Trump actually wins? That's the question at hand here. I think that there are a bunch of people that have written off Trump's ability to win, actually win the presidency. But what if they're wrong? How would the media act? How would the Democrats react? How would the systems that form the government, both at the surface level and at deeper levels, respond to Trump taking office? If the hysteria that resulted around the 2016 election is a benchmark, then I think we're in for quite a show if Trump is able to pull this off. So first question, lightning round, just a little round table here. Who thinks Trump can actually win in 2024? And I want percentage chance of winning against Joe Biden. Jim, what's Trump's chances? 1 to 100. 0 to 100.
27.
27%. Okay, I'm gonna write these down. Chris, what's your percentage?
Well, mine comes with a caveat. If it's a free and fair election, 100. It's not 0.
Oh, wow. Okay, quite a spread there. Quite a spread.
Yes.
Samantha, chances 0 to 100.
45.
45. Like it. I want to bump it up to 47, but that's okay. Justin, last one. What are your chances here?
1.
1% chance. Gosh.
Wait.
So I think that there are a couple of things that I think should make all of your percentages a little bit higher, except for maybe Chris's. But so a couple of things to just kind of set up the context of this conversation. So polling results. Justin and I were talking about the chances of Trump being the nominee like a month ago. We were talking about this over the phone. And then if he were the nominee, his chances going up against Biden. And Justin was basically saying that, Trump has no shot. And, I was like, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense to me. He has no shot, and I parroted this to my wife when we were talking one evening about Trump and his chances.
Who's MAGA?
In his who's very MAGA about his chances in the general election if he does become the nominee. And to prove my point, I pulled up the 538. Is that what the name of the website is? 538 poll results, where they have them all put together, whatever. And to my surprise, when I pulled those up, Biden wasn't ahead by a lot. In fact, it was mostly tied in all of the poll results. So I was like, wow, maybe this isn't like as long shot as I thought it was when Justin was trying to talk me into thinking that Trump had no shot. And it was essentially neck and neck. And then the most recent poll that comes out that I made the thumbnail about this podcast for was an ABC Washington Post poll that showed Trump with a 51 to 42 point lead in a heads-up race against Joe Biden in a general election. A strong 9-point lead against the sitting president. And I say this ABC Washington Post poll, this isn't some you name it, rag online or something like that. That's just polling their friends or anything like that. So a legitimate poll, left of center, you might say. Showing him with a 9-point lead. And then also, there was another article that I came across talking about how low Joe Biden's approval ratings are. And I think the story was centered around the disapproval rate for Joe Biden's time as president has reached an all-time high for his administration of 56%. And I think that this is attributed to a topic that we've talked about in previous episodes, the idea of Bidenomics, and that nobody's buying it. Nobody is buying that Bidenomics is a roaring success and that everyone is just so well off. The economy's recovered and all this stuff is booming. No one's buying that. So his disapproval rating is at the highest it's been throughout his entire presidency. And then there was another article talking about this kind of the attitudes around with the people around Joe Biden coming up to this next election, and it's getting a little sour. So there's been increasing talk about Democratic challenges to Joe Biden. He's the sitting president. He should just be the incumbent, usually unchallenged. But RFK Jr. has been running for a bit now. Gavin Newsom is stirring up some speculation. He's supposedly debating Ron DeSantis in November, I think. But most recently, RFK Jr. has discussed the possibility of running as a third party, stoking fears that he might be in a position to siphon off some of Biden's votes in a general election if he runs third party. So there's another article that I have, I think it's a Vanity Fair link in the show notes, where it talks about how a bunch of people are talking to Biden, including Hillary Clinton, talking about the prospect of this situation being pretty bad and how Hillary Clinton herself was in a situation where Jill Stein with the Green Party supposedly siphoned off enough votes for her to lose certain states that would have helped her beat Trump in 2016. And apparently after one of these meetings with Hillary Clinton, a White House insider had told NBC, I think, that the situation is pretty effing concerning, was the direct quote. And I censored that myself. I don't think it was censored when the person said this to NBC News. So there's a whole lot of things that are certainly making people on the left side of the aisle kind of nervous. And because of this, I think that Trump actually has a better than 50% chance of winning. I wouldn't have said this a month ago, but I'm putting it at 53%. That's what I'm putting it at. 53% chance of winning. So,
hold on.
Let's just discuss this. Let's just discuss this before we get into what happens if he actually wins. Go ahead, Justin.
Okay. First of all, if you're telling me under this scenario that RFK Jr. is also in the race, then I would say Trump has a much better chance, because I do think he probably, if he were running, would get 5-10%, something like that. He probably would, because there's enough Democrats that really hate Trump but also really don't like Biden, that they would probably do that. Okay, so I do think Trump's chances go way, way up if RFK. That wasn't how the question was posed, so I'm gonna start off with that. If so, then I would say he's got a great chance. I would say 53% might not even be like. I think it could be much better than that, even if RFK's in the race. I'll say that. With that said, I don't think that. I think there's a good chance Biden won't even be the candidate. In which case, I think that also changes everything. And I should have asked this when you set this whole question up. But under this scenario, is Trump in jail at the time of the election, or is Trump not in jail at the time of the election? Because that's like a legitimate question.
Which one helps them, in your opinion?
Well, I think that's a good question. I don't know necessarily which one helps him more, but I guess if I had to put money on it, I would say if Trump is in jail, I would say he's got a worse chance, I think, of winning. But if Trump is found innocent, for example, and he's not in jail because he was found innocent, then I would say he's got a really good chance.
If he's cleared of all charges going in, it's 100%.
Yeah, so I was operating under the assumption that RFK was not in the race and that Trump is probably going to be in jail, or maybe on the road to being in jail, which I think is what's going to happen. I think they're going to put him in jail. So I mean,
I want Jim
and all of this.
I want Jim to jump in here, because I'm actually kind of surprised. I thought your number would have definitely been higher than 27%. So let me have your take on his prospects of winning before we get into the hypothetical of if and when he wins.
Oh, how do I talk about this without getting the channel nuked from space? I'm really at a loss. Let's just say that I do not have 100% confidence in the integrity of our election system in this country.
Oh, God.
All right. I did say it in a way that's going to get us in trouble.
It's over.
I didn't really think it through. Sorry. The 2020 election was one of the weirdest elections ever. And yet our establishment told us that it was the most secure election in American history. We have been nothing but lied to and gaslit about everything that happened in 2020. COVID was the excuse they needed to basically set up for nationwide the perfect election system if you're a Democrat, and the way you run elections, which is to send out as many absentee ballots as you can, not require any signatures, send out people to collect those ballots, so-called ballot harvesting, and then bring them in whenever you feel like it, and then count them up, and what do you know? You win just in exactly the places you need to make sure that your candidate gets 83 million votes, the most in history, and just enough to win the Electoral College. So that was my last view of the last election that we had. And I don't see anything that has changed that would make our elections more on the up and up. They would give me more confidence in them. That would have people actually showing up to vote. That would have registrations double checked, and to make sure that people that are dead or have 3 residences are not registered to vote in 3 different places. Things like that. Whenever that's attempted, it's called voter suppression, and it's and all sorts of other nonsense. But what it really is trying to ensure that everybody who can legally vote does vote. That's what I think every American wants. But I think what we have too often is that a lot of people that shouldn't be voting are voting. Whenever you get, and there have been cases, I didn't really think to bring them all up and cite them, but there are cases of actual voter fraud happening, and people have been charged, and people, very rarely, but people have gone to jail for it. But we pretend that that doesn't happen in this country. And so if we have another election in 2024 with basically the exact same setup that we had in 2020, you should be surprised that my number is actually 27 and not, as Justin's is, 1. Because I don't know if with all of the headwinds that Donald Trump has among the electorate, and the, he's, how many indictments is he under now? Is it 6? Is it 4? I can't keep.
No, it's 40, isn't it? Doesn't he have like 40? Oh no, 6. No, it's 4
separate
indictments,
things, right?
40 charges or something.
91.
Like
91.
And
No,
Justin,
91.
I think it's adorable that you think that he might be found not guilty in one of these trials.
Oh wait, hang on.
I didn't
All
say
right.
that. I just said
Update 92. It's 92 now. All right.
92,
Yeah.
yes. So
Well,
I know-
actually, yesterday he was, in court yet again for quote unquote overvaluing his assets. And they said Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million. Actually, it's worth apparently $300 million. So
yeah, I think there's an outhouse next to Mar-a-Lago that costs $18 million.
That costs $18 million. Yeah,
I have a quick,
and note that came down right after more information about the Biden crime family came out. Again, it's a joke. It's a meme on Twitter. Every time bad news about the Bidens comes out, oh, I guess Trump needs to be indicted again. Bam, the Mar-a-Lago stuff comes out. I mean, it's really unbelievable. So the idea that Donald Trump can fight all of this off, and that the American people would select him, and that the result would be that he's president, I find that extremely.
Wait, Justin, you had your turn. I got to go to Chris first.
No. I just want to ask Jim one quick question. Okay. So, Jim, are you saying if the election? So, if we go back pre-COVID election rules, okay, are you saying what are the odds Trump wins then?
Well,
pre-COVID election rules. If we had pre-COVID election rules,
right.
What are the odds that Trump wins?
Oh, I would actually give it a little bit above 50%. Yeah, I really would. Without all the other stuff happening. I mean, if the elections were run like they were in 2016, yes. I think he could beat Biden actually pretty easily, but not the way election laws, as we call them laws, are set up in 2020.
Chris, the Bidenomics, as they like to call it, they were promoting that for a good portion of time. Justin tells me that they're still promoting that as it's been a success. Bidenomics is a success. And that alone, I think, if that were believed, I think that would, carry him into the presidency. Like, oh, the economy was bad, it was on the rocks, but it's doing better now, or whatever. So let's stay the course. But I don't think anyone buys that, and I think there's a lot of economic data that's coming out. Even new inflation numbers that are coming out. That's like, oh, it's not as rosy as Biden's making it look like. And then just the people, looking at their own checkbooks, looking at their own wallets and be like, I think there's supposed to be more money in my bank account. What's going on? Like, I think that is more telling than anything that they can spout, propaganda on the media about. But like, isn't the reality of the economy like a major headwind for Trump going into this next election?
Well, I think that the voters are well aware that Bidenomics is failing and that they are not getting ahead. They're getting, even more behind. And it's coming from all angles. It's coming from a macro angle. It's coming from a micro angle. It's coming from the fact that interest rates keep spiking because, the debt just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. It's coming the fact that prices are rising and wages are not keeping up with those rising prices. I think that one of the things that could be Biden's Achilles heel here is his. I don't want to. So a couple of days ago, Joe Biden was apparently congratulating LL Cool J. Okay. Joe Biden referred to LL Cool J as boy. Okay. Charlemagne the God analyzed that and said that was one of the most disrespectful things that has ever come out of a politician's mouth. Joe Biden has a bad history of saying things like that. Mm-hmm. I think that black men in particular are incredibly sick and tired of Biden's stupid comments and his stupid policies. And I think that if a block of black men say sayonara to the Democratic Party, we're going to go and we're going to, give Trump, a shot. I think that alone would be the end of Biden's reelection campaign. But I also think that one of the things that is going to be a big problem for Biden in 2024, union workers. And this strike at the UAW is because of Biden's stupid green energy policies and the fact that it takes 2/3 less workers to make an EV. These companies are losing money, and the only reason that they're staying afloat is because of the subsidies to these. And I think that is starting to to resonate with not only auto workers but just workers in general. The regulations, the energy stuff. Donnie, I play golf a lot, and I talk with a lot of business owners, and I've talked with a lot of business owners the last couple of weeks. They have just said that it is impossible to stay profitable in this economy, and I think that alone, people are going to vote on their checkbook. Like James Carville said, it's the economy's stupid all the way back in '92. I think that is just going to be the number one priority for voters, and I think that all this stupid culture war stuff and all the stupid stuff about Biden. He's given a speech today about how democracy is under threat and all this. I think that is just not going to really be on the ballot. I think this is going to be just a very simple election. People are going to vote on their economic futures.
All right.
Futures are very, very dark under Joe Biden.
Justin, I see you shaking your head. I'm going to give you last words on this part of the podcast, but first I want to go to Samantha. If you have any thoughts about Trump's prospects, things that are going to weigh him down or things that are going to prop him up when it comes to the election.
I do. Thank you. I feel like I need to justify my 45% comment.
I'm at 53, so go ahead. It's no problem.
Before I go to that, though, I do want to piggyback off of what Chris just said. And that's actually something that Doug Burgum did get really right last time in his very limited airtime last night, was that this strike in Detroit with UAW is because of Joe Biden's interference in the free market with these government subsidies and the absolute hypocrisy to show up and stand on the picket line with them has just been sickening to me personally. But to continue on to why I chose 45, I think that he does have a lot of steam among his base. And again, this is barring whether or not he's in jail, forgetting whether or not, right, let's say all things fair, throwing election rules out, he does have a very strong base, which wants me to pump those numbers up. Like what Chris said, people will be voting with their checkbook. They will be realizing that this economy has been terrible for a long time and is not getting better. My concern, and what has always been my concern with Trump, is that Democrats are emotional about him. They have very visceral, primal feelings. And there is this reaction to him that I don't think anyone else can rally and get away from. Even him, I don't know if his supporters can come out and outweigh the way that Democrats hate him. And that is so much more now after his presidency than it was in 2016. COVID voting laws aside, I just have this mental image that I can't shake of a very angry, left-leaning person, stomping to the polls to vote for anyone but Trump, whether it's RFK, the same way, an emotional wronged ex would walk with a pep in his step to key someone's car. It's personal, it's emotional to them. And I don't think you can get away from that. On the same side, sorry, one more point.
Right, yes.
On the same side, you have the very conventional Republicans who are the never Trumpers. I know a lot of people who are very conservative, but felt like the right thing to do in the last election was to write in someone else. So you will have I'm so afraid of another circumstance where the left completely mobilizes and gathers together, and then people on the right vote with principle and like to choose the write-in option because that is what our country allows, but it also further continues to destabilize a progressive and growing movement for the right to obtain victories. I'm done. That's it.
Donnie, can I ask a quick question to Justin? Because I want to hear what he thinks about this. Justin, do you think that this is going to be a referendum on Biden and his agenda?
Do I think it's going to be a referendum on Biden? No, yeah. I don't. I'm gonna break down. This is expert talking head analysis. This is how you decide who's going to win.
I'm giving
any
Justin
election.
Final naysaying before we just grant him the
Here it
victory, and then talk about what happens after that. So go
Here
ahead,
it
Justin.
is. This is how you do it. This is how you can determine any presidential election. This doesn't work with other kinds of elections. Okay. This only works with presidential elections. There is a surefire way to decide who's going to win any presidential election in the modern era. Okay. So we're not talking about pre-television. All right. Modern era only. This is how you do it. Whoever the more likable person is wins every single time. There is never a situation where the less likable person wins. It never happens. Literally never. It isn't the economy. It isn't any of these things that can impact how people think about whether they like the person or not in certain situations. But generally speaking, it's basically just whether they like that person's personality and trust them. Okay. That's all this is about. It really isn't about anything other than that. Okay.
Do you think,
you can go back and look.
Justin, do you think that the voters like Joe Biden, like personally, or do you think that
they
I don't think so either.
Of course not. But they hate Donald Trump. And that's the difference. It's not about whether you like. I shouldn't have said it's about. It's not about whether you like someone or not. It's about whether you like them relative to the other option.
The least unlikable wins.
Yeah, the least unlikable wins. So like Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump was a classic example of that, right? The reason that Donald Trump won was because he was more likable than Hillary Clinton at that time. That's the reason why. In the wake of, and if Donald Trump had not done what he did after the election in 2020, okay, if he had taken a totally different approach to the way he handled 2020, okay, and I'm not trying to say he's right or wrong or whatever, but if he had taken a different approach, I actually think he'd be in great shape right now. But everything that transpired after that, January 6th, all that other stuff, I think hurt him badly in the likability category. And I think as a result of that, he really can't win. If he does win, it would be the first time that a more unlikable person won in one of these elections. The economy, you could look at the economy and say, well, the economy is the driving factor. But Obama, if you remember right, Obama was not doing that well when he ran for re-election. And yet he won.
But Chris Christie hugged him after the hurricane.
I know that,
and
but that was part of the likability, Chris. That's actually part of the point, right? The reason they liked him was partially because, even some Republicans like him. It's this whole likability.
So, Justin, is that poll, that ABC Washington Post poll, just way off? It's just off by 10 plus points.
No. I think so. First of all, if I remember right, it's registered voters, not likely voters. Okay, so that can skew things a little bit. That usually doesn't help Republicans, but it can skew things. But I think it's possible that at this very moment in time, people really don't like Joe Biden that much, and maybe Donald Trump doesn't seem that bad, right? Maybe that is happening at this very moment. Mm-hmm. But Donald Trump is not on, they're not playing endless clips of January 6th on network television right now. They do on CNN and stuff like that. Those people are all voting Democrat no matter what. But on network television, on just the radio, when you're listening to the radio on the way to this work or whatever, the DJs playing like pop music, they're not talking about how Donald Trump's a fascist or whatever. Like the mobilization of like Taylor Swift to be anti-Donald Trump, which is going to happen if Donald Trump's the candidate. Okay, we're going to lose votes just from Taylor Swift. Like that kind of stuff like hasn't happened yet. Once that happens, like, once you get the Swift vote type thing going on for the against Donald Trump, there is just no way that he's going to win because he's not going to be more likely.
Do you think that it's possible that the media is amplifying these polls because they are trying to get rid of Joe Biden? Because I watch a lot of cable news, and I'm telling you, on MSNBC and CNN, they are starting to talk a lot about alternatives to Joe Biden, and he's too old, and he's mentally lost it. It makes me wonder if they are actually.
Yeah, I know Donnie is like desperate to move on, so I'll just leave it at this. I think that the establishment desperately wants someone other than Joe Biden. I think they would love to replace Joe Biden with someone else, especially Michelle Obama, who would win in a landslide, by the way, if she was picked. But I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I've calculated everything you have to say, and I've adjusted my percentage. I said I was at 53%. Now I'm at
You're
55%.
Yeah,
all
you're
right,
so
let's
contrarian, that's why.
let's just I don't know. I just think all of that stuff is baked in the cake. Like I get it, the general
Give me
voters,
one
all of that
example.
stuff, but
One example of the unlikable candidate winning over the more you can't.
Obama
Hillary.
twice.
Tell you one
Come
thing
on,
that,
man.
No,
that
Obama was more
Come on,
likable.
oh
for
yeah,
sure.
Obama was
Hey,
way more
hey,
likable than
Johnny,
John
one
McCain.
thing that does give me some hope. Las Vegas betting odds are in favor of Trump winning in a general election against Biden
Wow.
straight up. So
Take
that's
that.
one.
Take that,
Yeah,
Justin.
I mean, if people are actually
I
betting
think you
on
know
it,
more than
I
the,
didn't know that. Actually,
yeah.
no, that does make me feel a little bit nervous.
Yeah,
to be
take
honest.
that. Take that, and John Noderf in the comments. Take that one too.
Wow.
All right, so let's put all of that aside, and I want to get into speculation territory. What if Justin's wrong? What if Donnie is right, like always? And what if Donald Trump sails to victory? And you know what? I'm not even going to say sails to victory. I'm saying loses the popular vote, edges out the electoral college, wins by 2 or something like that, three electoral votes, something like that, and wins, declares victory on election night. What happens? And I kind of want to talk about this from 2 different perspectives. One is just like the media in general. You know, you could take that from the CNNs of the world to the wave of celebrities that promise that they're going to move to Canada and all of that. And then I also want to talk about it from like a governmental point of view. So Jim, I'm going to let you take first whack at this. What is the reaction on election night when Joe Biden has to walk out and do a meek concession speech? What happens, dude? What happens?
Well, I got to say, I've been following politics, for a long time. I mean, I was 14 or 13 years old when Ronald Reagan was reelected in 1984 in a landslide. And I really enjoyed, even back then, looking at the hangdog looks of guys like Peter Jennings and Tom Brokaw, who they couldn't believe. And they had to say, it had to come across their teeth, the words, Ronald Reagan has won in a historic landslide. Now, we're not going to have, I think I may be long dead before we have any kind of historic landslides like we had in 1984 again in this country. So divided are we. But the most fun I've ever had on a presidential election night was 2016. It was just glorious to see these members of the media on CNN and MSNBC and the networks. They just couldn't believe it. They were absolutely in shock. And I was laughing and having such a great time. I don't think that is going to happen this time. Let's just say, as you said, we have to, for this scenario, we have to pretend that Donald Trump has won. He will not have won in a landslide. And we also have to pretend, frankly, that the networks will call it for Donald Trump on election night. I think that's never going to happen. No way. But let's just pretend that it did. And that Donald Trump is clearly elected president again for a second time. Just from the media is going to lose its mind even more than they already have. And you can come back around with me on this one, but I think it's very clear from what is going on against Donald Trump. They were undermining the system. The deep state was undermining Donald Trump while he was a candidate. The Obama administration basically had meetings to decide how the most powerful agencies in our government could undermine him. Before he was inaugurated, media speculation and others and political speculation was that we must find a way to make sure that he is not inaugurated president. Again, this was in 2016. What do you think they're going to do now if he's actually elected president again? Although we know that the deep state, and there is a permanent bureaucracy in this country that actually runs things. And if the American people dare to elect somebody who that they think is wrong, who is not in the club, who will not go along with the deep state and their agenda, they have proven they will do everything in their power to make sure that person would not actually take the White House again. So, you can come back around with me on this. I have some specifics that I think may happen, but, the media is going to lose its mind. It's going to make, we've never been in a situation like this before where the entire society, the entire media thinks that to save democracy, we must make sure that the people can't choose their president.
Justin, I want to go to you next because you seem like the least convinced that Trump has a shot. It's unthinkable, seemingly, from your perspective, and surely it's unthinkable from a whole lot of people on the left's perspective. So, what are your thoughts of what the reactions would be if
this
Trump
is a
pulls
real
off the impossible?
So this is a real. I'm not joking. This is a real question to you. In this scenario, is Trump in jail or is Trump not in jail?
Let's go with he's in jail.
So if he's in jail, I think that people will be not quite as insane as if he's not.
All right,
in jail.
let's say he's not in jail.
Okay. Because
I want the most insane. He's not in jail.
Okay.
He just got released.
If he's not in jail, he's the clear winner. Everyone sort of agrees. I don't even know that it matters that it happens on an election night or if it happens 4 or 5 days after that. They probably will hold out hope no matter what. I think you can make a pretty legitimate argument that it could be the end of America. Like I think you could make that argument legitimately because there is a certain segment of the country that is so convinced that he is an illegitimate criminal who is a fascist dictator type who now is worse than he ever was before because now he wants revenge. Like he's the fascist, but now with a revenge mindset. Coming into power, he's going to politically, start I'll give you an example, okay? This is like a real example of what people are saying. Jennifer Rubin, who was supposedly a Republican or a right-leaning opinion commentator at some point in time, who is at the Washington Post, went on Twitter yesterday or the day before, X, and said that she's not going to cover the debate. She's not going to cover that. She's not going to waste her time covering the Republican debate. Instead, she's going to talk about how Donald Trump just threatened to execute Mark Milley, General Milley, because of stuff that he said about while Trump was, some of the stuff he was doing while Trump was still president. Okay. Now Trump didn't say that. Now Trump said something that was, like a Trumpian, but he didn't say that. Okay. But that's what they're going to do. They're going to say that he's going to start rounding people up and executing people. Like they're going to actually say that kind of stuff. Like that's what they're going to say. They're going to be riots in the streets. They're going to be burning down courthouses. They're going to be saying that like the furthest left-wing element is going to be taking the not my president thing to an extreme. They're going to be declaring autonomous zones.
I was going to say, we're going to see another one of those.
All that is going to happen for sure. For sure. But I know that there are people. I thought Donald Trump prior to January 6th, I really thought Donald Trump was one of the best presidents we've had in a very long time. Okay. So I'm saying all of that. I want people to keep in mind that I just said that. All right. Now I'm going to say this. I don't know that America truly can survive if Donald Trump wins. I really just don't. I just don't think that you can have a president, have America survive with a president when 40% of the country really believes that he's going to execute people and that he's a fascist dictator and all this crazy stuff and that he's illegitimate. Surely they're going to say that he stole the election somehow or whatever. They're going to do that. I just don't see how we survive as a country.
So what? But here, Justin, let me take the opposite. I'll play devil's advocate because I kind of, have a opposite view on this. I think the country cannot survive another 4 years of Biden at all. 70% of Americans think that we are turning into a police state based on the Biden, action so far. I don't care if the media goes crazy. I don't care if all these, left wingers, protest and do all that stuff. Fine, go for it, do it. All that matters to me is that Jim alluded to this, that Donald Trump brings a reckoning with the deep state, which is ruining our government. The fourth branch of government thinks that they have all the control. He needs to bring the FBI to heel. He needs to bring the intelligence agencies to heel. And I think that he is the Avenger that can do that. And I think that the fact that he won't have to worry about being reelected means the gloves will be off and he will finally do what needs to be done.
Everything you're saying right now is the rhetoric.
That's what
exactly
guys. But wait a second. But just put the rhetoric aside for a second. We all can agree that the deep state, like Jim mentioned, permanent Washington, whatever you want to call it, the intelligentsia, that they run the show. They've been running the show for way too long. Donald Trump, when he first got into office, he tried to fix that broken system. What did they do? They took every single quiver in there, in every single tool that they had and used it against him. But guess what? Now he doesn't have to worry about re-election. Now he knows, the terms of, the game here. So I think that, if we don't, I just think that another 4 years of Biden, our economy is just going to go, to hell. Internationally, China is going to take over Taiwan. It's just, I don't think that the United States can afford 4 more years of Biden and on any level. And I think that this, I know this is a cliche. This is the most important election in my lifetime, bar none. This makes, 2012, when I was freaking out about another Obama term, look like nothing.
Dude, in hindsight,
we have to win.
Elections.
No, we have to win this election. We have to.
So wait. No, wait. I want to get into the deep state and the government response and all of that, but I just want to go to Samantha for one last kind of comment on just like the media in general, broadly speaking. If the media's reaction to 2016 was a 10, what do you think it's going to be this time if Trump wins?
A 100. I think I will have friends that will legitimately, like Justin said, believe that our nation is broken and they need to leave, and they might actually feel so deeply as to like choose to not be my friend anymore because of what I do for work and where I stand politically. I think that it will reawaken and galvanize a very deep and draconian thing inside a lot of people who are legitimately, like I said earlier, emotional and visceral about Trump as president. That's
but Johnny, one of the differences when we lose elections, we don't sit there for 4 years, just frothing at the mouth.
No, we take over the Capitol building.
No. Actually, what we do is
I'm kidding you too,
and we move on. But one of the things that I noticed in literally the day after I was teaching in Bluffton High School, a lot of the teachers came in wearing all black and telling their students, "Oh, this is the beginning of the end," and all this stuff.
Oh, dude,
they are the ones who are unwilling to accept when they lose. And to me, this is one of the times where what, just accept it, deal with it, and move on. And it's it's going to have to be that way. We have to fight fire with fire. I'm sick and tired.
I was told of crying sessions at people's works after 2016 of certain employees. Crying sessions. I'm not exaggerating.
But so what?
Now we got to put up with struggle sessions.
Hold on, I know Jim has a lot he wants to say about all of this, and he should, because I want to hear.
Oh, and by the way, folks, we're going long. If you couldn't tell already.
Yeah, it is definitely. But I just want to add this because I didn't say this before, and I think this is actually a really important part of my prediction. So you said under this scenario, Donald Trump's not in prison, right? Sure. He's elected, and I say everyone's rioting and there's chaos in the streets and whatever. Mm-hmm. He will then be put in prison. Like that will then happen. So if he's not in prison, he'll be in prison. They'll put him in prison. They'll find some court somewhere, will throw him in prison. And then the right will then turn into like they're imprisoning the president. This is like a coup. And again, my overall prediction, America can't survive. That's my overarching prediction for all of this. But I think if he's not in prison, they'll put him in prison. I think if he is in prison, they might be tamped down a little bit. But
so that gets into the next part, which is kind of like the government's reaction to this. Whether or not you just want to call it the government or the Democrats, the left, the bureaucracies, deep state, intelligence, whatever you want to call it. What is their reaction to it? Jim, I think you already kind of teased a little bit about this in some of your responses. So why don't you take first whack at this part of the debate?
Yeah, well, we all agree that this country is just going to come apart at the seams if Trump is elected, and as I mentioned before, it's going to be worse than what we saw the first time around. I mean, Mark Levin and others have described as what happened to Donald Trump as a soft coup. I mean, and it was before he was even inaugurated, and that the people in power in the Obama administration are now in power in the Biden administration is basically the same people. They thought nothing of violating the constitutional rights of innocent Americans to take down Trump. And I'm meaning people like Carter Page and others in his, peripheral advisors. Let's lie to a secret court and be able to spy on these people so we can get Trump.
Yeah, there wasn't
a single person. in any of these meetings in which they discuss doing these things that said to anybody else in the room, you know, guys, that violates the constitutional rights of people who didn't do anything wrong. Not one person said that. They just said, what is important is that we get Donald Trump. They impeached him twice on absolutely BS charges. And now they're trying to take his businesses away. They were going after his kids. I mean, they did everything. And there was never anybody in the room who said, look, guys, this is an abuse of power. This is not what we do as Americans. Let's just beat him the next time he's up for election. No, from before he even took the oath of office, the entire system of our government and society worked to take him down. They were talking about invoking the 25th Amendment because he was Looney Tunes immediately after he was sworn in. And this was discussed openly and as if it was a normal thing in our media and in our politics. And so I think if he is elected again, we're going to go from soft coup. I could totally see a real coup. You mentioned General Milley, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Do people remember why Donald Trump said that Milley should have been brought up on charges of treason recently? It's because Mark Milley called his counterparts in China and said, right, don't worry. I mean, my boss is a nut job, but we're not going to attack you.
But Jim, wouldn't it be?
You don't do that. You don't do that. That you are not supposed to do that. You do. You serve at the pleasure of the president. It is completely out of bounds to do something like that. This would be the equivalent in the Cold War of somebody calling up the Soviets and saying, "Don't worry. If you see any noise about a nuclear attack, it's completely fake. Don't worry about it." That person in the Cold War would have been brought up on charges of treason. You don't do that. Milley didn't do that once. He did it twice. He did it again on January 6th. Oh, I called you before. I just want to assure you again, don't worry. We're not going to do anything to you. Trump's crazy and stuff. You don't do that shit. I'm sorry. There I go. I swear again. I get upset. So it is completely within the realm of my imagination that people like Milley would go to the Pentagon and get up a bunch of people to actually gather men and march to the White House and take Donald Trump into custody. I totally can see that happening, considering everything that's already happened in the soft coup stage. And do I think the Secret Service would hand him right over? Yes, I do. I do, because I don't think anybody in our government anywhere, I don't have any trust in any of our institutions that I'm even willing to entertain something I would have thought was insane just 5-6 years ago, that the Secret Service of the United States would hand over the sitting president to Mark Milley and other people from the Pentagon to depose the elected president of the United States. And the kicker in all of this is that through all of this, those people think they're the good guys. They think they're doing this, and they say it all the time, to save democracy. And so that, I think, is a plausible scenario if Donald Trump is elected president next year.
Is Jim.
But Donald Trump is going to fight back against that. He's not going to let this happen to him. So I think that even if they do try to pull,
how,
I would never put anything past him. But you know what? If we are afraid of the consequences of Trump winning because of the left's insane reaction to it, that makes me even want him to win even more. Just to show them for their true colors. And if they are so afraid of Donald Trump that they would resort to that, then that would actually prove to the American people that these are the ones who are against, democracy, against, the people, against, the Constitution. And I think that would actually make Donald Trump look better, and it would actually help in his, quest to finally, once and for all, drain the swamp and put the deep state where it belongs.
Okay, so real quick, Jim, do you think that Trump ends up in prison? If because you kind of said, okay, I think he will. I think he ends up in prison somehow
before the election.
Because
those aren't going to go to trial before the election.
No. Well, we don't know that. It's possible one of them will go to. All they need to do is convict him on one felony to put him in prison. That's it. But I think he'll end up in prison. If he wins, and he's not in prison at the time of the election, I think he'll end up in prison. Jim says yes, he ends up in prison.
But if he wins and he's the sitting president, I highly doubt that they would be able to go through with that.
Well, he wouldn't be. He would be the elected. He'd be the president-elect. He wouldn't be the sitting president. But
you're telling me
saying
from November to January that they would be able to put that trial through and convict him, and without the appeals process taking place, because he wouldn't go to jail immediately.
You could have an appeal. No, you can go to jail immediately, and they can put him in jail just pre-trial. Without bail. I mean, they can do whatever they want. I think they will do whatever it takes to stop this man from becoming president. And that was, I think, what Jim was just saying. Like, I think they will do whatever it takes to stop him from being. So Chris doesn't agree. That's totally fine. Samantha, do you think that Trump gets thrown in jail as a political prisoner if this happens?
Soviet Union?
Yeah, I mean, what do you think? Am I crazy? Is Chris crazy? We know Jim's crazy.
Samantha, you got to unmute. Yeah, there you go.
Forgot to unmute. Sorry, guys.
Don't answer that question, Samantha.
I completely agree with Jim and Justin. I couldn't have said it better than Jim or Justin. They would do anything. I keep saying it's an emotional, it's a visceral, is a primal reaction.
I totally agree that they are going to do that. However, what I'm saying is that we can't kowtow and say, well, we don't want to upset the apple cart too much. I almost want that to happen so that it's like a final reckoning happens. I would put my money on Donald Trump.
Oh, I don't think any of this speculation should be like looked as some reason not to vote for him. That's not
no, Donnie. But what I'm saying is that I know that some people would say, well, for the good of the country, it would be better for just, for Donald Trump to just go away quietly and let Biden have his 4 years, and then in 2028 we'll put forth a candidate. But guess what? By 2028, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter by then.
So
we need to like stand our ground. This is the hill we have to die on.
There is faction of people who consider themselves like accelerationists, which basically like they feel that for this nation to heal, like it would take a monumental break of that shift. Like perhaps this theory of having a democratic nation where you have so many states that are so completely different, this experiment of the United States, like maybe just isn't working. Because the people who live in California and in New York are so monumentally different from the rest of the country that maybe a breaking point needs to happen. And that's terrifying. And I'm not saying that's my belief by any means, but I am just adding another perspective.
Mommy and Daddy have tried.
I think part of the reason why that might happen, though. No, but Donnie, but I think part of the reason, Sam, that's such a great point, and I totally agree with you. And I've seen this, this division grow larger and larger and larger, in my lifetime alone. However, I once again just think that we can't let them, win just because we're scared of how they're going to react to a potential Trump victory.
Mm-hmm. Okay. No, I don't want to scare people about it. I just want to like prepare for what could happen. That's kind of what I'm talking about.
You haven't actually answered the question yet.
Oh,
Donald. Me? You're the only one. Everyone else is on the record. Inevitably, this is going to get played when they're dragging Trump off to jail. This is going to be played. I want to know. I want you on the record. Is he going to jail if he wins or not?
First off, Samantha, you haven't been on the podcast in a while. I promise you that this isn't what every episode is like. This is an outlier.
I actually love this. I'm disappointed if every episode. Also, you didn't answer the question, Donald Duck.
Oh, got it. Yeah, I'm ducking the question over here. Yeah. So that's gonna do it for it. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think it's going to be apocalyptic. I think it's going to make 2016 look like nothing. I think if Trump edges out a victory, you are going to see a meltdown like you have never seen before. They're already laying the groundwork for some of this. We didn't even get to some of these articles that I put in the show notes, but there's articles, one's from the Atlantic, one's from the New Republic or something like that, both talking about these like potential constitutional clauses that are in place that strictly prohibits a president that has done treasonous stuff or whatever from actually taking office. And that type of stuff is going to be invoked. That is the whole reason why they're trying to make the riot of January 6th, 2021 painted as an insurrection or something like that, so that they could lay this foundation to completely disqualify him from ever being president. I don't know. I can probably put my tinfoil hat on or something like that and change my own mind here, but I don't think that they ever thought that Trump would be in this position where he would be like clearly the candidate of choice in the primaries and clearly going up against Biden for round 2. And all of the things kind of breaking against Biden. Again, I don't think were expected. They went on there. We talked about Bidenomics a handful of weeks ago, and the narrative that they were trying to push, like I said at the beginning of all of this, was that it's a raging success. Oh, the economy's doing so well. Can you believe that Biden policies are lifting everybody out of all these bad situations? BS. It's not happening. Everyone sees it. So I think that is further helping Trump reclaim the presidency and all of that. And if he does, all bets are off, man.
Donnie,
all
so
bets are
jail,
off.
jail or no jail?
Oh, I think they'll, yeah. I think they'll put him in jail.
Jail it is. It's jail.
So,
But I don't think that's going to help. I think that'll help him. I think that's going to help him. So,
Are we even
actually
comprehending how insane this conversation is?
Oh, it's
Of
insane.
the 5
I
people
know.
on this podcast, that all 5 of us probably agree that one way or another, they're going to make sure that Donald Trump, a former president of the United States, the leading candidate for the Republican Party of the United States, will be in jail.
well,
Hopefully before the election, but definitely by the after
what's
the
the-
election, win or
what's the-
lose.
what's
This
the flip
is
side?
insane.
What's the flip side of it, Jim? That he wins and they're like, well, good election. Freest and fairest election since last time. Have fun,
That's
Donald
impossible.
Trump.
Impossible.
That is the
Of
least
course
likely of scenarios.
I mean, Donnie, but of course that's not going to happen. But part of the reason why I think that they are so, unwilling to accept him as, the next president is because for the first time in so many years, an outsider came in and said, you know what, it's time to rock the boat. And they just cannot stand that, especially permanent Washington, the bureaucracy, the deep state. That's why they are just, scared out of their minds of him coming in and really just saying, I learned from my mistakes in the first term. From day one, it's going to be, just a war against the deep state. And I think that is what we need. And that's what the American people want.
Oh, ladies
some
and
American
gentlemen,
people want.
ladies and gentlemen, this is
Probably
a little premature. Obviously, we're not even through the primaries. Whole lot of stuff could happen between now and the general election. But I think it is, like I said, I think it is interesting, and I think it's important to kind of think about what could happen, especially in a scenario like this. And like I said, it's not an impossible scenario. Like I think you could say it's coin flip. Maybe you could say it's a little less, but I think it's well north of 0% chance of happening. So we're already an hour 20 into this podcast. I'm going to skip Davos Watch. I know everyone's booing. Yes, I know. We're all booing. I get it. But I will cut a separate Davos Watch video and I'll post it on Heartland channel either probably early next week or something like that. So you'll definitely get your fill of Davos Watch from me. But lady and gentlemen, are there any final comments? Anything you want to get off your chest about these topics and anything else that we've discussed in the podcast so far?
In 2020, I think that the American people, for the most part, knew that the election was rigged and that there was circumstances that could cause one to question the outcome. Okay. I think that for 4 years, those of us, and I'm going to include everyone on this, panel here, bit our tongues, bit the bullet and said, okay, you know what? The other guy won. We'll just let him do his thing. We unlike them, we didn't sit there and say, no, okay, now we're going to derail and use every single lever of power to, to try to get rid of him. We did what a gracious loser does. We said, okay, fine, you won. Now it's your turn to govern. I think that they are unwilling to have that sort of mindset. So even if Donald Trump wins in a free and fair election, it doesn't matter because they're still going to cry foul. But that doesn't mean that we need to appease them by saying, well, we're not going to really put our best fight forward here. Donnie, I think this is make or break for the country. And I think that, it's 4 more years of Biden will take us down a path that is, I think, beyond repair. I think that he would then have the gloves off too, get rid of the filibuster, just all sorts of stuff. Maybe, Puerto Rico statehood, who knows?
Pack the Supreme Court.
Pack the Supreme, all that stuff. So I think it is incumbent upon, the people who believe in the Constitution, believe in limited government, believe in federalism and all that great stuff to say enough is enough. We're going to put a guy in there who is actually going to defend those founding principles. And if it means that the left is going to go haywire, then fine, so be it. That's on them. But I'm just so sick and tired of not having that fighting spirit. Mitt Romney didn't have the fighting spirit. Donald Trump, for the first time in my lifetime, had that fighting spirit on our side. And look what happened. We actually made some major progress. I'm not saying that it was perfect, but he did what he said he would do. And that's something that almost all politicians never do. Donald Trump is not a politician. That's why I like him, because he's an outsider. He comes in there and just applies common sense solutions, and he doesn't deal with all the political BS.
I just want to pony soldier.
I just want to say that this is how I always imagined this channel would end. And you know what? I'm glad that it ended the way that it's kind of like a movie. You kind of imagine how you like an ideal ending. This is the ideal ending for the show. This is great. I appreciate
a climactic conclusion to the in the tank saga.
It's like the movie Deep Impact. You're standing on the beach, seeing this huge wave that's a mile high coming right at you.
Of YouTube
and just hug the
censors.
people you love as it comes over you. Yeah.
No way. We're making it to 420, Donnie.
Yeah, we got to get to episode 420. Jim, Samantha, final words?
I just
Before
like
we
the way you're
sign off for the podcast.
Wider the crazier the talk gets around here. So
this
always makes me
couldn't
happy.
have
As long as
gone
you're
better.
happy, Donnie, that's what
This
matters.
could not have gone better. This is best case scenario of how I thought this conversation would go. Samantha, thank you for being on with us. You were our special guest for the show. Yeah, hopefully we didn't scare you off for the next time that we invite you on the show.
Sorry, Samantha.
Sorry.
I loved it. Burn it down. I'm kidding, guys. I'm kidding.
that was the final straw on the camel's
That
back. Our
was it
show-
right there.
We just got canceled. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of In the Tank Podcast. Join us every week for a new episode, hopefully, on Thursdays at noon Central Time. For those audio-only listeners, you can catch us a day earlier. You can join the show by leaving a comment or question, and maybe we'll show your comments on the screen. Maybe we'll address your question on the fly. Super chat functionality. Remember that for next time. Also, you can help the show by hitting that like button, subscribing if you haven't already, sharing this content. Leaving a comment under the video, all those things helps break through those big tech algorithms and prevent content like this from being shown to more people. If you'd like, you can follow us on Twitter at InTheTankPod. If you want to send us your comments or suggestions to the show, feel free to email us at inthetankpodcast@gmail.com. Jim Lakely, where can the fine people find you?
At Jay Lakely on Twitter, at Heartland Inst on Twitter, and always visit heartland.org.
Justin, aside from a future gulag, where can the fine people find you?
It doesn't matter. Honestly, it's all over. It's all over for me. I'm done.
All right, fantastic. Chris Talgo, final person. What do you have to pitch today?
Heartland.org, and go check out the opinion section. We got a lot of great writers writing a lot of great stuff, including Samantha's op-ed about the Colorado taxpayers'
Bill of
Rights. Fantastic. You were going to say Tabor, and you stopped yourself. I applaud you for it.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you all for tuning in. We will talk to you next week, hopefully.
No, we won't.
What we should really do right now is just sit around and talk about all the times back in the day when me and Barack would run around the hallways of the White House with candies, and we'd snip the kids' hairs as we gave them candies.